present for you, for one evening only, a special appearance of Sir Benjamin Baker. Thank you.
Bridging the Firth of Forth by Benjamin Baker, Esquire, member of the Institute of Civil Engineers, first presented in London on Friday, May 20th, 1887. During the past 4 years, many thousands of visitors from all parts of the United Kingdom, and indeed I may say from all parts of the world, have more or less carefully inspected the works now in progress under the superintendence of Sir John Fowler, the Engineer-in-Chief, and myself for bridging the Firth of Forth. The present lecture is an imperfect attempt to convey to you by description and illustration some notion of the magnitude of the proportions and difficulties of construction of what is generally admitted to be one of the most important engineering works yet undertaken. Now, I would wish, if possible, to impress upon my hearers here this evening the exceptional size of the Forth Bridge, for even those who have visited the works and noted the enormous gaps to be spanned each side of Inchgarvie may yet have gone away without realising the magnitude of the Forth Bridge, as compared, say, with the largest railway bridge hitherto built. If we could transport one of the tubes of the Great Britannia Bridge from the Menai Straits to the Forth, we should find that it would span little more than 1/4 of the space to be spanned by each of the great Forth Bridge girders. To get an idea of the magnitude of the Forth Bridge, stand, if you may, in Piccadilly and look towards Buckingham Palace, and then consider that we have to span the entire distance across Green Park with a complicated steel structure weighing 15,000 tons, and to erect the same without the possibility of any intermediate pier or support. It is a cantilever bridge. Now, one of the first questions asked by the generality of visitors at the Forth is, why do you call it a cantilever bridge? A cantilever is simply another name for a bracket. But the 1,700 feet openings of the Forth are spanned by a compound structure consisting of 2 brackets or cantilevers and 1 central girder. In preparing for this lecture the other day, I had to consider how best to make a general audience appreciate the true nature and direction of the stresses of the Forth Bridge. And after consultation with some of our engineers on the spot, a living model of the structure was arranged as follows. 2 men, sitting on chairs, extended their arms and supported the same by grasping sticks butting against the chairs. Now, this represented the 2 double cantilevers. The central girder was represented by a short stick slung from one arm of each man, and the anchorages by ropes extending from the other arms to a couple of piles of brick. When the stresses are brought on this system by a load on the central girder, the men's arms and the anchorage ropes come into tension, and the sticks and chair legs into compression. Now, in the Forth Bridge, you have to imagine the chairs placed 1/3 of a mile apart, and the men's heads to be 360 feet above the ground. Their arms are represented by huge steel lattice members and sticks or props by steel tubes 12 feet in diameter and 1.5 inches thick. The design deliberately emphasized how the leading lines of the structure were expressive of great strength and stability to reassure the nervous traveller. People have long, long memories where failure is concerned. And the Tay Bridge disaster of the 28th of May 1879 was never far from our thoughts. Indeed, I will confess, I spent a sleepless night or 2 worrying about such a disaster befalling our bridge, and perhaps 1 or 2 more worrying about the prospect of a tragic poem by William McGonagall about I was minded to take the immodest step of quoting a particular expression of approbation received from one of the leading architects of the age, Sir Alfred Waterhouse. You only have to think of the Natural History Museum to think of how wonderful an architect he is. However, I don't have to do that because I'm pleased to say that he is in fact among us this evening.
Now, I wrote many things of the Forth Bridge, but have selected probably my favourite passage as follows. One feature especially delights me, the absence of ornament. Any architectural detail borrowed from any style would have been out of place in such a work. As it is, the bridge is a style unto itself. The simple directness of purpose with which it does its work is splendid, and it invests your vast monument with a kind of beauty of its own, differing, though it certainly does, from all other beautiful things that I have seen.
Thank you again, my honourable friend, for those very kind words, and especially for that one word, beauty. It contrasts very strongly with the views publicly expressed by another of my contemporaries, William Morris, who did not mince his words. As for iron architecture, there never was and never could be such. Every improvement in the art of engineering makes the use of iron more ugly, until at last they had that supreme specimen of ugliness, the Forth Bridge. I now recall my initial draft made some passing reference to a glorified painter and wallpaperer, but on reflection, I'm glad I resisted stooping so low. 65,000 tons of steel, almost 7 million rivets, and all at a cost of over £2.5 million, some 50% higher than the original tender. And everything except the rolling of the steel plate is done on the spot, and consequently, there are literally hundreds of steam and hydraulic engines and other machines and appliances just too numerous to mention. It is, of course, impossible to carry out a gigantic work of the kind I have had the honour of supervising without paying for it not merely in money, but in men's lives. I shall have failed in my task, ladies and gentlemen, if you do not, to some extent, realise the risks to which zealous and plucky workmen will be sure to expose themselves in pushing on with the work of erecting the Forth Bridge. Yet only this week, I had the advantage of looking back on the casualty lists, and the following fatalities leapt out at me from the page. Thomas Shannon, rivet catcher, age 14, fall from height. David Clark Russell, riveter's labourer, age 13, fall from height. Difficulties and accidents necessarily occur, but like a disciplined regiment in action, we close up the ranks, push on, and step by step we intend to carry on the work to a victorious conclusion. Who would have thought it? Well, me actually. Thank you. Thank you for your kind attention. Above all else, of course, travel safely tonight. Good evening.